Okay, well, we are going to roll through what I consider a very exciting way of explaining and being able to look at the process of Unity's affirmative prayer. And I want to just jump right into the content. I mean, I'm assuming that many of you are familiar with the basics of Unity affirmative prayer. Would I be correct?
Yes.
In that?
Yes.
Okay, I assumed that. Because I'm not going to start all the way back with the 5 basic principles of unity tonight. You know, we might refer to them, but what I want to do is just look at really what's the purpose of affirmative prayer in unity. And there are a few purposes. Actually, they're all really one purpose, but here's how I explain them. That affirmative prayer cultivates our awareness of oneness. In other words, you know, we say the one teaching, the primary teaching in unity, there's only one power. There's only one power. And that power is the power of God, the presence of God, divine mind, right? And we pray from a consciousness of that one unified mind. So that's what affirmative prayer is for. That's what we want to have happen in there, is for us to have a growing awareness of our unity with the one. And in keeping with that, just like as the second unity teaching or principle is that our nature is also divine, right? That we are in that state of oneness. We can't be outside of God. You know, I like to say, how could I be the great exception to everyone and everything else that is one with God? How could I? Only in my own mind could I imagine that I could be separate, right? The truth is that God's nature is my nature, ultimately, and in the absolute. Right? So by praying affirmatively, I'm reminding myself of that principle. And I don't know about you, but in my human thinking, in my human nature, it's easy to forget my divine nature. And so prayer, unity affirmative prayer, is a way of reminding myself of this great truth. So let me suggest to you, if you haven't yet, to mute your microphones. Then when you want to share or ask a question, then you can unmute to do that. That way we won't hear peripheral sound. So that'd be great. Thank you. All right, the next thing that unity prayer is for is to reveal some truth, right? For us to have an awareness beyond what we started with, right? To have a broader awareness of some truth that we need to grasp for the circumstance about which we're praying. And of course, unity prayer is for us never to focus on the circumstance and our desired outcomes, but on our capacity to navigate this circumstance spiritually whole and with spiritual maturity. So we don't pray, you know, announcing a particular outcome. This is very different from other forms of prayer, isn't it? When you think about it this way. All right, so that's basic. That's the basic, you know, it's basic to all of unity prayer, that these ideas. And I want to share with you then a basic flow or movements of prayer. Many of you who studied unity prayer have learned them as the 5 steps of unity prayer. How many of you, just raise your hand if you're familiar with the 5 steps of unity prayer? Okay. What I'm going to do is reintroduce them with some different denominators. And I'm going to explain what they're about and why we sort of change some of the words to it. All right. by looking at what Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore had to say about unity prayer that sort of backs me up, right? That sort of has the reason why I kind of relabeled the 5 steps of prayer and created of them a flow. Now you heard the Butterworths talk about our interaction with the flow, the divine flow. I want you to start thinking of affirmative prayer as a flow or as a movement of prayer. Fillmore said that prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known, and that prayer is an affirmation of truth. Now, most people, when we think about affirmation, we don't necessarily think about it as a here and now, what's true right here and now that I can know. A lot of times in the world today, affirmations are used almost like good luck charms. Have you noticed that they're often stated as the way I want the world to be, even if it's not that way right now, I want to affirm that it is. You know what I'm saying? Like we're said, like if I'm not feeling well, I am whole and well. Now, to me, that's not affirmation. To me, an affirmation is what Fillmore said. It's an affirmation of truth that eternally exists, but which has not yet come into my consciousness. It comes into consciousness not by supplication, but by affirmation, right? So we affirm a truth that we need to know. We could say, when I'm not feeling well, I could still say, wholeness is my nature, right? Wholeness is the truth about me. But to tell myself I'm whole and well when I'm not feeling well, my body just doesn't believe it, right? So I'm looking for a way to express truth and affirm truth that is a truth that I can recognize right now, that is the ultimate truth of me that I can grasp. And Myrtle said, our method of prayer is to acknowledge our oneness with God. And that's what we're going to do in this movement of prayer. Acknowledge our oneness with God, claiming the ability that it gives us. You know, when I know that I'm one with God, I recognize now that I can, right? I can take certain actions. I can know at a deeper level. I can bring about through my actions changes in my life, right? Because of that knowledge. So Myrtle had that to say, and then Charles gives us this, to me, is my marching orders for my life. Listen to this. This is from the book Talks on Truth. It is your mission to express all that you can imagine God to be. Let this be your standard of achievement, never lower it, and never let yourself be belittled by the cry of sacrilege. He said, you can attain to everything that you can imagine. If you can imagine that it is possible to God, it is also possible to you. So think about that. That to me is a mandate. Fillmore's saying, you know, we have this way of kind of not wanting to accept the truth of our oneness with God and what it means to us because it's not acceptable in the world around us. And he's like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about others accusing you of being blasphemous. Practice this, right? Come into the truth of consciousness. And so unity prayer is a way for us to get into that consciousness. Now, I think about it as a flow. I think about it as a spiral. Anybody familiar with in New Zealand? They relate to an image of a fern frond. Anybody familiar with that? It looks like it looks like a bud of a fern that looks like an embryo, actually, right? And as that fern frond unfurls, it begins to open. It begins to open like this, right? Into a big spiral, and then ultimately, into a big fern leaf. That image is used in so many cultures, and a lot of indigenous cultures also, to represent life. You think about it. When I'm in a state of need in prayer, like when I'm not realizing a truth that I need to know, and I'm worried about something, or I'm struggling with something in my life, and I have the need for prayer, I like to think about that as being pretty clenched, right? You know how it is when we're tense, our energy is tight and curled up like this. So to me, when I begin prayer, in a sense, that's how I see myself in consciousness, right? And what happens in effective unity prayer is, as I begin to open, and I begin to see a truth that opens my mind and that expands my consciousness until I see a greater truth for myself. Is this making sense to you guys? It's a way of thinking about prayer that says, what is it I really want to happen in prayer? I want to have an expansive consciousness. I want to know a truth that's going to set me free, that's going to have me change my life experience in some way, right? That's why we pray. So what I like to envision is these aspects of prayer, that we start with opening. We start opening, right? I open. That's the beginning of prayer. Now, those of you who are Unity students and have studied the prayer teachings, what's the word that one of the first aspect or step of prayer as you learned it?
Breathe.
Relaxation.
Relaxation.
So the question is, what's the purpose of relaxation? Fillmore called it relaxation, the first step or phase of unity prayer. First, relaxation. What's that about? Why relaxation? Anybody
Quiet the
can
mind.
answer.
Quiet the mind.
Quiet the mind. Yep. For what purpose? Why do we want to quiet the mind?
To get
To
centered in
connect.
consciousness.
Pardon me?
To get centered in your consciousness and connect with your divine.
To get centered and connect with the divine. For what purpose?
Opening to the truth that I am.
You said the word opening. Opening. Very often in unity teaching, we'll hear that relaxation is about becoming receptive, right? And all the things you each described about getting centered, about slowing the thoughts. Many people, somebody said the word breathe. All those things that we do as we begin prayer are for a purpose, right? And the purpose isn't to relax like to fall asleep, right? That's not the purpose. It's not just to relax. It's to relax the body. It's to relax the nervous system, right? To slow down the functioning so that our mind can open to truth that we're looking to know. So there's a purpose for that beginning of prayer. And that's why I have renamed it for myself, opening, because it's the activity of the beginning of prayer is to open to truth. Okay?
Mhm.
And so a simple way I could think about this is I begin breathing deeply and completely, relaxing and opening to an awareness of the power and presence of God right now. bringing to mind my concern, I'm willing now to know a truth that will set me free, that will illuminate me and be a transformational catalyst, right? I open. So that's the beginning of prayer. And all the things that we do to relax, to become present, are all in service to my ability to open. I open my mind, I open my heart. So I like to just call it, I open. It's opening, right? All right. So the second then thing that Charles Fillmore identified was called concentration. And the question always for me was concentrating on what? What is it? And of course, he explained a lot about it. He explained about really grasping some of the nature of God, grasping, this reality of divine mind, the power, the presence, right? Recognizing God. And so I call it recognition for that reason. And what is it we're doing? What is the purpose of concentrating? Right? Always in unity prayer, the whole reason for concentrating on the nature of God is so that we can see it as the truth of our being, right? So that we can claim that power. So think about it this way. When I focus attention on the nature of God, on the reality of a source of all that I could possibly need to know, and if I would become specific about that and recognize, as Myrtle Fillmore said, that God is not a person, but a principle, the life principle, the love principle, the wisdom principle, for example, the principle of strength, that if I were to recognize that God is the source of that principle that I need to know for the thing that has been on my mind, right? The purpose for which I'm praying. And I can be more clear about what it would mean, what it means for me to know that God is my source. How many times in prayer do we hear, well, God is with you, or God is the within of you. God is in the midst of this circumstance. And I've always felt, maybe you have, I've always felt like, but how is that useful to me? What can I do with that knowledge? You see? And for me, I began to discover, probably not, I wouldn't say by accident, I think just by inquiry, I came to see that if I could be more specific and identify one aspect of the nature of God that I really think would be important for me to know right now in whatever I'm praying about, then I can be really clear about that. And I can begin to envision how that quality of God could be true about me too. When we say that we are one with the one, and that we are made in the image and likeness of the divine, and we are one with God, how can we actualize that? And I think I begin actualizing that by defining the indefinable God in some way that can be really helpful to me. Does this make some sense to you guys?
Yeah.
So when when I'm not feeling well and I'm in bed and I'm shivery and my throat is sore and I'm not feeling well, when I think about praying at a time like that, I want to identify the power of God, the very nature of God, as the wholeness of life, right? As the wholeness of being, as the vitality of life that I'm feeling lacking right in this minute. You know what I mean? Like, I want that. I want to know that. And I want to tune into that. And so to be able to define God, to recognize that divine life is in every cell of my body right now, it's a living reality of Godness, the quality of God as vitality right here and now. I don't know, that does something for me. When I do that, I can believe that, and I can tune into that even when my nose is running and snotty and I'm shivery and not feeling great. I can touch base with that reality. You with me?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so by doing that, I'm identifying one aspect of the nature of God. Do you see that? Just one aspect. And there's a reason why I want to identify one aspect of God. So, if I'm in a period of indecision about an important life, life matter, a matter of my relationship, or a matter of my job, a matter of something that's really important to me, and I'm in a state of concern about making a critical decision and worried about, will I make the right decision? I mean, this is pretty something that's pretty universal, isn't it? I mean, at some point or other, we're all in that sort of a state. So I could contemplate, what do I need to know about God? What is God that's going to really help me help me to calm, help me to feel more of a sense of assurance, right? Help me to stand strong. And so I could recognize God as order. This is just one possibility, right? One of the 12 powers is order. I could say, let me recognize that there is an inherent order in all things, and that always in my life, there has been an orderly progression from one thing to another, not always conscious. Sometimes I'm just tuned in, right? And I'm moving in that order. Let me sense the perfection and the beauty of divine order right now. And let me name that as the divine quality that I want to anchor in this time of decision making. Could that be helpful? Could that be helpful to you to know that? And so I start looking for evidence of that order around me. And I start remembering times when I was worried before about how things were going to unfold. And I see how, oh my gosh, every step of the way, things do resolve. Everything has always resolved. And my life has always gotten greater. I've always, I'm always on that walk of order. And that would help me to calm and focus, right? As I recognize that God is the power of perfect order. So those are a couple of examples for you. And here's why it's important to me to be able to identify some aspect of the nature of God, whether it's strength, God is my strength, God is harmony. That's especially good when I'm having trouble in my relationship, right? Harmony, order, life, release. If I've been holding on to an unforgiveness, and I'm feeling tortured by my own state of unforgiveness, sometimes the power of release, seeing God as the gentle letting go that is part of the flow of release, can be so useful to just know that that is divine power. that is God power. And because it's God power, I can then flow into the next part of prayer. And that part, Fillmore called it meditation. But what he said was meditation was reflecting on that nature of God and how that, what it has to do with me, what it has to do with me. So I end up calling that aspect of prayer integration, because when Fillmore said, first you reflect on the truth, and then you go into the silence, which is the meditation part, is first thought, and then it's not thought, it's stillness of silence, that he was talking about moving in the direction of realizing I am the great Christ consciousness, right? That is our individualization of the power that God is. So this tracks specifically with our unity teachings. There's only one power, and I'm one with that power. That's what happens in this second and third movement of prayer. First, I recognize the power of God, and then I integrate my human sense of myself with my divine identity, with the truth that I am one with God. So the more specific I am about describing the nature of God, the more I can claim it as my nature. Right? So when I say that God is the very power of wholeness and vitality that I can experience and express in my own body temple, then I can go further and say, I claim wholeness. It's natural to me because I am one with the God of wholeness. Or in the second example, when we talk about order, God is order. We don't often think of ourselves as order, the power of order, but that's exactly what we are rightfully. Our divinity is order because it's true about God. If it's true about God, it must be true about me. So instead of me, flailing in indecision and worrying about whether I'm going to make a good choice or not, what I can do instead in this aspect of prayer is to reflect on the truth that I am one with divine order. And therefore, I can't be separate from order. And therefore, that very quality of order that I recognize in God is the quality within me. And therefore, I am perfectly capable of taking orderly action, orderly steps in my life in the direction of making a decision. You see how useful that can be? It's I'm going to claim order. And I'm going to stop pretending that I'm not orderly or that I don't have a mind that is able to grasp the flow and movement and sequential actions that take place as I make decisions. I'm going to not pretend helplessness any longer. I am going to claim that divine order is natural to me, and I'm going to activate that order in my life. So in other words, I claim my divine identity and I name it in a particular way that can therefore be useful. Okay? And then the next thing that happens is the same word that Fillmore used for the next aspect of prayer. And remember, it's a flow. I'm expanding my consciousness now, right? And now I'm coming into realization, because if I start to get it that what I have just named God is also my name, that it's true of me if it's true of God, then what becomes possible for me? What am I able to do now? To think, What am I able to know and therefore live more confidently because of that? What am I able to bring about, in my situation because of this truth? So we're stepping into what Myrtle Fillmore really anchored in her prayer with others, as she told people over and over again, you are not helpless. You have all the power of God, within your mind and within your ability. And so, this is the heart of prayer. It's to get to this place where I realize that I'm not helpless. I'm fully capable. Why? Because I am divine, because I'm one with the very power of God. And so I begin to reflect in this phase of prayer and realization. What truth will I affirm? What will I demonstrate? What will I prove in my life? How might I act now, knowing this truth, right? What will I do differently? Because prayer isn't really effective at all unless I do something with it, correct? Unless I go and live my life differently because of this incredible realization. So that's this is the culmination of the whole flow of prayer. And because of that, we end up in that final phase of prayer that, that Fillmore called gratitude. I call it appreciation. Why? Because when things appreciate, they rise in value, right? And so I like the thought that I am declaring the value of this prayer experience to my life. I'm declaring that I am free. I am freer than I was before, that I have a capacity that I wasn't aware of just moments ago, that I have gained something of real importance through this period. That's appreciation. That's real appreciation. Okay, I want to pause there because after this, we're going to get into really going through a flow with this and telling you, I'll tell you just a little more simply how I think about this movement of prayer. But I wonder if you might have some questions, comments. Let me know. Let's talk. And if you want to, I think what would be helpful is you can either just raise your hand or you can just, unmute yourself and ask. We're not too many people that we shouldn't be able to do that. Okay? So talk to me, guys.
Linda, can you
Who's this?
Terry,
Gary, hi.
can you please clarify realization again with an example?
Yes. So for the example of, being in bed, not feeling well, that example, when I was recognizing God as vitality, as the power of life itself, right? And then I claim that that's my nature as well. That therefore I am the power of vitality, and I can demonstrate that vitality. Every cell of my body is vitally alive right now, and I'm tuning into that. So what can I do with that? I can bless every cell of my body. As I lay here in this bed not feeling well, I have the power, to not to take me out of that experience, but to go more deeply into it, to go into the cells of my body. Myrtle did this. Myrtle demonstrated this, right? And talk to them and talk to myself and to tell myself, right now, no matter what I'm feeling, every cell is bursting with life. Every cell is fully doing what it was designed to do for my well-being and for the strength and wellness of my entire body. What happens when I start telling myself that? I start feeling better. I mean, because what's happening is that the helpful feel-good chemicals in my body are being stimulated and generated because of that track of thought. So I can do that. That's me actively in the state of realization. So I tell myself, what can I do? if I were to know right in this moment that I am whole, how would I live? What would I do next? What step would I take that is possible for me to take right where I am? You see, so I don't pretend to be helpless. It's not all or nothing. Okay, I'm sick in bed, so that's the end of it. No, no, no. I can do something that supports my wholeness and well-being right now. And that's what realization is for, to say, okay, then if I am one with God and God is wholeness, and therefore I am wholeness, how would wholeness act? How do I act when I know that I am whole? And that's what I do. I start living differently because of it, right? In the other circumstance where I'm making a decision and I've been worried about making a wrong decision, and therefore what happens when I'm worrying? It's like my energy is constricted, right? When I worry, I can't make a decision at all because I'm stuck in this fear-based sort of mentality. So when I start affirming that God is the power of order itself, and that order is natural to all of life, and I can see it out there. And so if it's true about God, it's also true about me. And so let me affirm the truth that I am the very nature of order itself. So if I were to know that, what might I do that I haven't been doing? Well, number one, instead of worrying, I might take some action steps, right? I might start making a list of pros and cons of making this decision or that decision, right? I could start using my powerful intellect, right? Which is part of my whole human divine system. I can do that. I can say, well, one of the things that I've been worried about is that I don't know if that job that I'm interested in, would pay me enough money, or if it would require me to relocate. I don't know enough about it. Okay, so one of my action steps would be to gather more information, to do a little more research on it, and then to let it be, and to trust that every step of the way I am gaining a capacity to make a wise decision. You see, that's what realization would do. I start taking logical steps. If I've had a dispute with my neighbor and I'm calling in the harmony of divine love, I'm calling that up from within me. I'm recognizing God is the harmonious power of love. It must be true to me. Therefore, I'm capable of thinking harmoniously and acting harmoniously. So in the state of realization, what might I do differently than what I have done? Okay, so I can admit I've harbored some pretty unkind thoughts about my neighbor, right? I haven't had a good experience, and I've been making them out to be, monsters or unfriendly, or all the judgment that I've had about them. Okay, I am going to put the pause button on that train of thinking, because that's not embodying harmony. So what would I do? What would I think instead? I'm going to begin to imagine myself encountering my neighbor the next time, and having a thought about them, that they, like me, are interested in a harmonious resolution to this situation. Whether that's true or not, I don't care, but I'm going to harbor that thought, and I am going to lead with conciliation and with a helpful thought of what we could do differently to resolve this. You see? So I become, in other words, the kind of person that could then work that out. Why? Because it's in me. Because it's the truth of me. That power that God is my power. And I think for myself, too often in my life, I have not appreciated that, and I have not claimed it, and I've not therefore practiced living that clearly, the power that is within me. So, but it's possible. And when I do, I really see the transformation that's possible. And you know how it is, when I change, then the world around me seems to change too, right? How you've noticed that, right? Well, thank you for asking that, Terry. I hope that gave you some examples and some
Yes.
ways to think about this.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Clara.
Hi, Clara.
I've been wanting to know, when we change our inner conversations or our inner being, what is happening that causes your environment or the world around you to, or people around you to change? What is that? Where is the connection? What is the connection? I've been wanting to ask someone that for eons because I've experienced it, but I want to know, okay, what happened to make that? What's the connection?
Well,
Does that make sense?
I tell you what, there's so many ways that different people have explained that reality. In unity, we just say it's spiritual law. And when we say that, here's where I go with that. I go with this, that we're vibrational beings, right? And our thoughts have a definite vibration. And when I change my vibration, the world around me appears to change, but I think what really happens, it's sort of like what they call the law of attraction. The way it works is not that things then come to me. It's more like I am such a vibratory match to that which I am vibrating right now, that's what I connect with. It's like tuning forks. Okay, have you had this demonstration? This is really a fun demonstration. I did this one year at church in a children's service, and it's a mind blower, even for adults, right? My husband's a guitar player, so I had two guitars sitting, apart from each other on the platform, and one of the musicians plucked one of the strings on one guitar. When he did that, the other guitar, same string, started vibrating along with it. That's life. That's life, Clara. That's the way it works. We are vibratory beings, and we harmonize in sync with one another. This is why we say that one person can change the world. This is why. You are the light of the world, and you can make a difference right where you are. This is why. Because it's vibration, and whatever vibration I am holding, I am broadcasting that wherever I go.
And is that, okay.
Mhm.
That's the same idea as I've heard said about a butterfly's wings. When they flap their wings, this fluttering or vibration is felt countries away, worlds away. That's the idea that you're.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's as Fillmore said, thoughts are things, and they have a definite effect, a vibratory effect. And you can feel it, right? When you walk into a new place you've never been to before, you can assess pretty quickly if this is a friendly place or not for you.
Yes.
You can feel it, right? You can feel, I either feel at home or I don't. Listen, I moved to Florida, and when I got here, I told my kids, my body is at home. My body, like, just everything in me just relaxed when I got here. And I just feel it. I mean, like, there's not a lot of explanation, Clara. I can't say what physiologically has happened. You know what I mean? I can't describe to you scientifically or all of that kind of thing. I just know what I know. And so do you. We know what we know about that. It's consciousness. It is consciousness, and our consciousness is a living reality, and we infect one another.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So, there's really good reason for us to really engage in this process of prayer, of opening, of recognizing some aspect of the power of God, of then integrating our human understanding of ourselves with our divine nature, right? Of coming to I am. to I am, to that claim of our nature. And then in realization to say, how am I going to live because of this understanding now? What am I going to do differently? How am I going to make a difference right where I am? How am I going to shine greater light now in the world, right? And then as a result of coming to that new conclusion and new way of being, it's naturally a celebration. That's appreciation. It's naturally something to feel appreciative about. Okay, so this is different. Is it not a little different from what you've learned about affirmative prayer? Tell the truth.
Reverend Linda, I love how you talk about prayer as being this movement. I usually say it's a shift, but I love that it's a flow, it's a movement, and just to kind of revisit the 5 unity steps, and that I have to tell you that, you know, we learn that becoming an LUT, becoming a minister,
Yes.
you know, I can rattle off the 5 steps. But what I really liked to hear was you did bring them into a practical way of looking at these. So they, you know, some of the language that came up in the early days sounds very it's more principle, it's more it's more you know, it doesn't have any flow. You're talking about
Yeah.
the flow. It doesn't have a flow. It's very static. It's very,
Yeah.
you know, it's very up here in the head.
Yes.
Very up here
Yes.
in the head. And,
Yes.
and what I felt you did was you moved it down to, for me, more into my heart. How do I feel? How am I showing up? What is this pulling me to then do and express?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, you know, when it's 5 steps, it feels like a climb. It feels like I have to get somewhere. Whereas when it's a flow and it's like I'm unfurling, I'm opening to a new understanding, and I'm becoming more expansive in my consciousness, which is why I like it being like a spiraling open into infinity, right? I mean, I just can continue with that. So to me, I like the image of that very much. And I like thinking of it as movement, because I am moving. If I'm not moving, then the prayer is not effective. It's not changing my life. And that's the whole point of prayer, is to expand my awareness and to come to some new conclusions, to new decisions, right? Yeah.
I think another thing that happens is not only the resonance that you're talking about. I think when we get in that place, we change the way we look at the situation. So we're seeing it differently.
Exactly.
And the
Oh my
energy of
gosh,
that
yes.
makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you. Thank you. Yes, I see them differently. And I'm no longer fixated on some kind of an outcome, you know, because I'm seeing that this is not about getting to some kind of finished end. This is about me understanding the nature of God and my divine nature. This is about me not being helpless in the middle of anything.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And as I change my, as I expand my consciousness, as Clara said, when I start doing things differently, the things start changing. Right? It's not like some magic. If I pray long enough and hard enough, God's going to fix it and it's going to be all better. No, it's as I pray with understanding and come into a realization of my divine identity, that I'm not powerless, then I start thinking differently and I start behaving differently. And those actions actually bear fruit in my experience, and my life is differently. You know, Wayne Dyer said, and he wrote a book called Change the Way You Look at Things, and the things you look at change.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not magic, it's spiritual law, is the way we've always described it in unity. But that law is the law of vibration. Really, it's the law of affirmation. That's not like a magic charm. I'm not trying to get away from what's going on and magically just leap into some finished state. That's not what prayer is really for. We think it is, especially those of you who are prayer chaplains, and people come and say, well, you know, my loved one's in the hospital, I want them well and back home again, right? We want what we want. But when we're praying with someone else too, I think it bears fruit for us to inquire inwardly, what's the spiritual issue here? And if they were to know that they were not helpless spiritually in this situation, what could be helpful to them? So what of the power of God would be helpful for them to recognize and claim, you see, so that they can be fortified in the middle of the concerns. Yeah. All right, are we in good shape then? Anyone else before we proceed? No? Okay. Then here's what I would like to do. I'd like us to have a real experience of this for yourself. Are you willing to do that? I call it moving prayer. And, you know, oftentimes in a workshop, I will have you actually get up from your seat and move around. And I might suggest some, you know, some physical posture or movement, that kind of thing that you can choose to do. Why? Because when I get my body involved in that prayer, I'm doing a whole prayer. Body, mind, and spirit are one in this prayer. And so often we leave our bodies out of it, you know. But for me, when I'm in my body, I'm grounded spiritually, and I find it very powerful. So I offer that to you as we proceed. And I'm interested in what you will discover. Now, are all of you familiar with the 12 powers?
Yes.
Right? And I'm just going to very quickly say them from top to bottom, because I know they're organized in different ways in different books, but in my book, Divine Audacity, I feel them in my body, because Fillmore identified the physical resonances of each of the powers, and they just flow so beautifully from crown down to the base chakras, right? So for me, I think about the 4 brain powers, right? You have faith and imagination, faith in the center of the brain, imagination between the right and left hemispheres behind the eyes. I mean, just think about that. All things become possible in that state of imagination. And then in the prefrontal cortex, you have understanding and will. You have power in your throat and zeal at the back of your neck. Think about how zeal and power work together. So this is potent right here, right? And then there's love in the heart and wisdom in the gut, in the abdomen. And then deeper toward the back, you have the power of order, just really central in the lower torso, right? And then at the base of the spine in the back is strength. Think about anchoring yourself in a strength pose. Think about core strength, working on core strength and how you anchor your pelvis and hold. That power of strength is right there. And then the regenerative organs, the elimination organs for elimination, and the regenerative organs for life. I mean, your body, it just flows in your body. So get familiar with these energy centers in your body. And then some of you who are more kinesthetic, where you're feelers more than thinkers, when you pray, one of the ways that you can discern even what power of God to focus on in that recognition or concentration aspect of prayer could be that you feel it in your body somewhere. You could feel it in your body, and then that would be a clue to you. So you can do that either way. And why I mention the 12 powers is that these are easy ways for you to describe the nature of God. They're not the only ways, because sometimes people see God as peace or God as joy, right? There's other words, other qualities that you might find. So I want you, to familiarize yourself with what you know about the nature of God. What are the words you use? What are the qualities that you associate with God? And the more you have them at the ready, they'll come to mind when you begin to pray, and then you can claim them yourself. This makes sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So let's enter into an experience. What I'm going to do here, you can't see what I'm doing, so that doesn't matter. But I would like you to just, put your pens and pencils down, your notes and that sort of thing, and just, get yourself, enter for yourself into a stance of prayer, just sitting in a way that you, that you feel relaxed and yet alert. You want to be relaxed and yet alert in your body.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
And to begin to become present to what your own personal prayer need is right now. You just ask, what's been on my mind? What's been in my heart in the last 48 hours? What's been going on with me that I would want to bring to prayer? Just begin to notice what comes to your awareness. Just notice and begin to form some language about it, just to know for yourself how you would describe what your prayer need is. And then begin to ask yourself, just be really real. What do I want? What do I want? What's the spiritual matter for me in this situation? Just ask yourself and sit with that. And so we open. I relax my body right now, and I open my mind to a truth that I know I have been seeking. I open my heart to the glory of the light that is inside of me. I willingly seek and enter into a state of expectancy. I'm ready to know a truth that will make a difference to me. And so I breathe and open. If you're familiar with yoga breathing, the Ujjayi breathing, then breathe that way. Just relax your abdomen and draw your breath deeply and fully in. And then slowly breathe out. Hear your breath behind the back of your throat. With each exhalation, really empty, and see that emptying as a clearing out of the brain, an opening, an expansive opening for truth. I open. I open. And now I focus on the power of God, in a way that God isn't a person, but a power, a principle, that I most need right now. I choose a word that describes God in terms of a particular power or principle. And I recognize that God is the source of this power within me. That God is the source of this power. This power is infinite. It exists within as well as all around me. It's fully accessible to my mind. And I have all that I would ever need of it within me. So I identify one quality, one power, one principle associated with God. And I recognize that God is that. God is that.
I am order. I am order.
Now I want you to focus for a moment in your body on the surface of your own skin. Recognize the temperature there, the pulse. Recognize that your skin is permeable, which means that the atmosphere around you gets in and the vibrations and substances in your own body get out. That you can imagine, in a sense, just smudging that border and spilling out into the godness around you. You know, no longer a form and a shape, but part of the whole that God is. Just imagine that now in your mind, spiraling out in consciousness, becoming bigger, greater, vaster than the limited form of human. And so now I think about that, and I think about how I'm one with God in truth. And because of that image of not being limited to a physical form and a distinctiveness, right? A separation of any kind, I just now open to the full truth of I am. That I am fully human and I am fully divine. I now claim my Christ consciousness and see myself as a divine human, fully imbued with all that power that I identified as the power of God. I am that I am. The name of the Christ consciousness, the name of God. I am that I am. I am that harmony. I am that. I am that strength. I am. I am that vitality. I am. I am that peace. I am. Name yourself that which you have named God. I am that. I am. And because God is and I am, that means that I am able to do, to be, to have, and to bring about something wonderful. And so let me ask myself, knowing that I am that, what becomes possible for me next? What can I do? What can I think? What can I have? What can I support? What can I emphasize and devote my time to? Devote my attention to? what becomes possible for me, knowing that I am that. I am. And whether or not you have a clear sense of what you could do, think, be, bring about in a state of realization, we can conclude this time of prayer by celebrating this truth that we are grasping of our oneness with God and what it really means. This isn't just a figure of speech. This is a capacity. One with God means I am fully capable. I'm not in any way helpless. And so I fully now choose to cooperate with the very good that I am declaring right now. To know a greater truth about myself and about what's possible, this is something to celebrate. I'm filled with appreciation. And so I take a deep breath. So grateful. And so it is. So it is. Amen.
Thank you.
All right, my friends, we'll take a deep breath there and settle, settle. And, in the few minutes that we have remaining, I would like to hear from you about your experience of prayer in this way. Questions, comments? Yes, Diane?
It's interesting, all that we just did with that, I literally felt it inside. I mean, it really resonated to the point that at some point I was near the end, I was saying, I claim it because I am it. I just love that.
So, in other words, you had, it sounds like a visceral experience, right? Yes.
Yes.
Which means you were fully in your body, you were fully present and embodied.
Yes.
Prayer, we don't go away somewhere else in prayer. We don't disappear. The whole of us, can be in that state of realization.
Right. Yes.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Levon, if you're speaking, you're muted, so we can't hear you. I see your mouth moving. Yes. Oh, she's muted again. All right. Someone who's not muted wants to speak?
Yeah, this is Ruth. I came up with options. It's just like, it's just not one way. I can, I just got quiet and all of a sudden these options were coming in. So thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, I love hearing that. So often when we start prayer, we have a thought of where we want to be, and we think, it's a closed deal for us. And the thing is that if my mind is closed, in other words, if there's only one option in my mind, then it's really hard for me to see any other possibility. So this really says to me, you were really in the state of open, right? And willingness to see a bigger picture. So thank you for that. I'm really happy to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If somebody wants to speak, all you have to do is press your space bar, and that will bring you in.
Oh, that's nice to know. Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Who? Somebody speaking?
Yeah, this is Shamil if no one else is going. I'm sorry, I'm on my cell phone, so I can't see everyone at
Oh,
once.
okay, Shamil. Hi.
So I hope I'm not speaking over someone. But I wanted to ask about praying for someone else. I know that we've touched on that, but recently I have a loved one that is going through some health challenges, and all I really want to do is go back to the traditional ways that I learned to pray and beg God to heal her. So I'm getting kind of lost on how to hold. I can hold her in love. I get that. But I guess when it gets to number 4, the realization that I have the power to do or to have or to allow, I think that's where I'm getting tripped up, because I do feel powerless in this situation. I hope
Okay.
that makes my
Well,
question makes sense.
yes. It's a physical illness or a physical condition.
It is a
Yes.
physical
Yes.
illness. Yes.
All right. So, when I'm in a state of concern about the physical well-being of a loved one, so this is what I do is I know I'm the one. I need to pray for my own realization, for my own consciousness, that would then be able to be helpful. So, I mean, I think we do the same thing with this as if you were ill yourself, Shamil, and that is to recognize the God of wholeness or vitality, any of the aspects of divine life, life itself. You can just say that God is life. And when I understand that God is life, that means that life is irrepressible, that it's indestructible in truth, that it can't be diminished, it can't be destroyed, it can't be interrupted, that life is an eternal and continuous flow. So when I start to define what I understand God as life means to me, now I claim that for myself, right? And I say, oh, that's true about me. And if it's true about me, it's true about my loved one. Oh, so I've been worried about my loved one, but my loved one too is just really, her or his nature is also divine life. Oh, so that means there's something happening right there where they are, that is, life is happening, right? Divine life is happening right where they are, regardless of the appearance. That's our teaching. I'm not going to be triggered by the appearance. I'm not going to be fooled by the appearance of things. I'm going to go to the deepest truth, right? And the truth is that divine life, the God of life, is what I am, and it's what my loved one is. Let me recognize life. Okay, so in that phase of prayer, that movement of prayer, of the integration, I'm integrating it for me. I'm declaring I am, and then I'm also thinking about my loved one, and I'm knowing it about them. Got it? Right? I'm knowing that truth about them. This changes everything for me, because I go from being really worried about them to understanding that they are the very power of life too. And I've been seeing the only human appearance of them. I've not been seeing the truth about them. Let me cling to this truth. All right, so then I go into realization. So now knowing that I am divine life, I focus on life. I focus on my own vitality and my own presence, because life is also presence. The unmistakable, unique presence of each one of us is a representation of divine life. I will be that for my friend. I will be whole in a state of wholeness when I think about and when I go to visit my friend. And I will focus on her or his totality of life.
Okay.
So this means when I go visit my friend in the hospital, my first question is not, what did the doctor say? Are you going to be okay?
Right.
None of that. When I go to see my friend, having prayed, having come to this state of realization, and knowing now my purpose is to see and foster life, divine life with that person, I'm going to talk about their life. I'm going to talk about their wholeness. Look, I could see the color in your cheeks, or, tell me about your grandbaby that you talked with yesterday, right? Talk about life, talk about the fullness of their life, talk about what's important to them, talk about what their next plans are, when they're well. Talk about the fullness of their life and see them totally whole and in their fullness of living, because they are right there. They are fully alive and demonstrating the power of life. So find that life, that point of life, and speak about that. And that's all we need to do. That's all we need to do.
Shamil and Linda, I just wanted to say something.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something about that. And Linda, I'm not sure if this fits entirely in with what you're saying, but I did have an experience where my son was sick, and then at one point he was in hospice and he passed away. And for me, it was really the power of love that walked me through the whole experience, because what I found is, but it was the same kind of an idea that you're talking about. I really was able to focus on just when I focused on love. What are the qualities we know about love? We know that love has a power, it has a strength, it has peace, it has acceptance, it has harmony, it has all those qualities in it, which is what I felt we needed, both of us, in that moment.
Yes.
And I had felt so connected to him that I could, you talked about vibration and energy, I could feel what we both needed. And it really was this, just to breathe and to be okay. Because I think that, sometimes, especially with prayers around healing, if it's not focusing on the physical change, if we're in a place where there may not be a physical healing, then to use that inner strength, that inner energy, that power that we are, to be able to navigate that space, that time, that place, is really another gift that this type of praying offers us. And I know that we did that together. I used to do meditations for him, just really kind of relaxation, physical relaxations. Just sit there and start with each part of his body. Feel feel your toes relax, your heels, just, which is almost like a Myrtle Fillmore healing. And it was real. So anyway, that's what I just want to say, that, so for me, love was the overpowering. In fact, that's one of the things that after he passed away, I was even able to say at one point that, thank you, God, for the gift of this unconditional love that I got to experience with him.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, here's the thing, is that any power, any attribute of God that we're connecting to, that we really feel, that's it. Because for me, life includes all of that too. You know what I'm saying? But I get where you're at, because the unifying power of love, that's such an anchor at a time when, when someone is going through a dying process. And see, this is the thing, we're so fixated, the great, collective consciousness is so fixated on getting that person out of that bed and back into a form of living that we recognize, right, as well. And the whole point of this kind of praying is to get out of that question of whether somebody's going to recover or not recover from a condition. That's not the point. The point is you find the life, you find the love, you find the harmony, you find the strength, you find that quality of God that you're recognizing. You find it right where you are and right as you are with that beloved, right? And it becomes so much deeper than just a head trip. It's there's no words to describe it fully, right, Reverend Ellen, of what happens in that. There is it's the vibration. It's the vibration, as we've talked about it, which is such a small word for what it really is, right? It's the mystical union is what happens. So these are just some examples, and whatever you experienced, in this prayer time, I hope you take it to heart and work some more with it. As you pray, go through this process for yourself and see what comes up. And the most important thing is that at the end of prayer, there's something that's fundamentally shifted. It's fundamentally, I can't go back. I can't go back into that. You see what I'm saying? I don't go back to that because I have an expanded awareness now, and I'm going to do something with that. And I promise you, it is the practice of that new consciousness in action, fifth step of our teachings, right? Fifth teaching. But it is that, see, realization is not realization until the action changes. So realization is not just here in the head. It becomes lived. Changing the way I live is the state of realization, right? That fulfillment. So you have the tools. It's a matter of being deliberate. It's a matter of I think the number one thing for me in this way of praying is to remind myself that in the human condition, I can feel really helpless, powerless. The whole point of affirmative prayer is to recognize I cannot be powerless, because in truth, I'm one with God. And that means that all that God is my capacity. That's really the point of affirmative prayer. How are we doing?
Well, I think
Yeah.
our time together is up, but
Okay.
I want to tell you thank you so much. I loved how clear you are in being able to just talk about these heady concepts, and to just and for that prayer example that you offered all of us. This has really been a great time for us, for me. I don't know about anyone else. But I do want to also just mention one more time that we are doing this with a love offering. So I want to invite everybody to go to our website, unitychurchofraleigh.com, and you can click on our donate button, or you can mail a check to the church, and just make a notation that this is for the prayer workshop.
Wonderful.
Anyone
Yes.
have any final questions or anything for Reverend Linda as we come to a close?
I just wish to say that I feel so aligned with the energy and the descriptive nature that you brought to each of those familiar steps,
Yes.
and
Yes.
a new way to totally embrace them and embody them. And for this, I am deeply appreciative.
Oh, thank you. Rupali or Rupali? How do you pronounce it?
Holly, and I wrote you a personal chat if you would check it.
Oh, I will. I will. Oh.
And I am so grateful.
Oh.
I usually do Thursdays on a book that we're doing, Deep Acceptance Foster. So I just autopilot went there, wondering 7:02 and no one's here. And then it dawned on me, Because everyone's at the prayer workshop, you idiot. You announced it at Sunday service. You should know this. I was the worship partner. Hello.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you joined us tonight, and thank you for that.
I came in as you were praying, and I was just so delighted that I hadn't totally lost it all.
Oh, well, I'm so grateful for each one of you tonight. It really, it's such an honor to be able to pray with you and to support you in really deepening your own prayer life experience. So thank you for the opportunity, Reverend Ellen, and I hope to meet you all like face to face when it becomes possible. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Reverend Linda, and everybody who joined us this evening. And we did record this, so we are going to put it on our website in case anyone wants to go back and listen again. So have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Be well.